Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody had a great weekend. It's another crazy weekend in college football with 9 of the top 25 losing. So it's just still not sure why it's happening. I think in the near future we may see 2 lost teams in the college football playoff, and I think that's what's coming. But happy we won the game. You beat your rival for a 3rd straight time, and you do it at home. You get to keep the victory bell, and that's exciting for us. We didn't let a tough game at Atlanta beat us twice, which is really, really important in your process for your team and growing up. So it's like I said, it's great to have the victory bell here. Duke played hard. They were well coached. They did some good things against us, but glad that our guys hung in there and won the game. Players of the game, offensively, Josh Downs, 8 catches, 168 yards, 1 touchdown. He just continues to play at a really, really high level. We got to get him some help. We know we've got to run the ball better, and we got to get the ball to the tight ends, the backs, and the outside receivers more. So he's carrying a load right now. Defensively, Cam Kelly played the most he's played and played the best. 7 tackles, 1 interception. That was a tremendous play for us, and he was the leader on that defense. Even though he missed a tackle on the long touchdown pass to start the second half, he played by far the best game since he's been here. And special teams player of the game with 2 tackles was Cam Roseman Sinclair. And that's the best he has played. And he played really, really well. He did have the call for the hit out of bounds over on their boundary. And we have turned that one in because he's had such great effort and he's playing really, really hard. And we did not count that against him. Offensively, you start looking at who we are. It's good that we can gripe at scoring 31 points on offense against our rival because we still have too many tackles for loss. We still have too many sacks. We understand that. We're working really, really hard to correct it. We're moving people around. We're looking at schemes. I think part of the problem is this offense is trying to be like the one we've had the last 2 years, and it's a different offense. So they did show more patience on Saturday. They didn't get frustrated, and they were able to protect the football. And we didn't go for 4th and 2 at the 43 because we were playing great defense and we punted. So we're trying to figure out who this team is and get the identity. And each week we seem to learn more from it. But Sam played well. Ed Montellis and Curion Johnson played really well. Curion really saved us when he came in at center, and it's the best he has played since we've started. Emory Simmons is doing a good job. We got to get him the ball more. Tight ends are playing well, and the backs are improving. Sometimes I think on offense we're just trying too hard. Everybody's trying so hard. Some of the blocks we're missing, they're overdoing it, and some of the backs that are missing holds are going so fast they're not patient. They got to slow down a little bit and make things happen because we've been over this video so many times just to make sure that we'll figure out every little thing we can do to improve. Defensively, it was our best performance. Jeremiah Gimmel, Miles Murphy, Tamon Fox played so well. And then we started stopping the run after Durant made some runs early. We made some adjustments. When we stopped the run, we were able to get pressure on the quarterback. And Tamon Fox and Tamari, Kamen Rucker, those guys really put pressure on the quarterback and really made Duke change their game plan because it was hard for them to block us up front. And then when we started stopping the run, it gave Hester a chance to knock the ball out of the quarterback's hands. And Trey Morrison with a really, really heads up play to not fall on it, but pick it up and take it the distance and hope that replay said it was a fumble, not an incompletion. And we actually teach that if it's called a city ball, if there's a lot of people around you, fall on it. If you see a fumble, if it's a country ball and you're out there by yourself, scoop it and score. And he was able to do that. So really, really proud of proud of Trey Morrison for his performance on that play. So forcing 2 turnovers, one of them for a touchdown was great. The offense didn't collect on the other one. We had 5 sacks. They didn't have any trips in the red zone. We stopped them on a 4th down play. So that would really be like 3 turnovers, and really most proud of 2 for 15 on 3rd downs. That's a difference for us. We were getting off the field. And in fact, we've been 5 for 26 defensively against Georgia Tech and Duke on 3rd downs the last 2 weeks. So that shows a lot of progress in that area. And the biggest thing we've got to do is be more consistent on offense. That's the thing. We were consistent on defense. The question about defense this week, they'll be bragged on all week. So now will they come out and be walking around and not be ready to play? But I think Florida State will get their attention and have them ready to play. You've got to play great and then build on it. We played great offensively against Virginia, and we've had 2 inconsistent performances. Even though this one we did score. I said I was griping and some others were griping, and people said you beat your rival 38-7 and you're griping, and you get 470 yards and 31 points on offense. You probably better regroup and figure out who you are. You need to settle down and appreciate the plays that you're making, and you can fix the others, because it's easier to fix things when you win. Kicking game was it was good, not great. We were inconsistent with our punt returns, but we did have a couple for some yards. We covered so well. We did force 2 holding penalties on kickoff that put them back inside the 20. OB did a great job of batting a ball away from the 1-yard line back to the 6 for field position. So with us playing such great defense, we had great field position as well, and it was hard for Duke to take it the length of the field. Then we made our field goal. Still haven't put our best game together. We're still waiting on that. This weekend would be a great time to do that. Like we said, we got to handle praise with our defense after playing really well. But last year, Florida State rushed for 241 yards, and 4 of the 5 offensive linemen are back, and 10 of the 11 starters are back. And they're very skilled. And we haven't done a very good job of stopping the quarterback run. And he's very talented in that area. 11-4 at home over the 2.5 years. So really proud of the way our guys are playing. We need the crowd to be loud and help us a lot this weekend. We did outscore Duke 14-0 in the 4th quarter, and we didn't play well in the 4th quarter at Georgia Tech. So that's an emphasis that we've gone back to, because we've played so well in the 4th quarter since we've been here. This weekend, we will honor Coach Bowden. There'll be a mural painted up on the brick wall right outside of the area where the Florida State fans will be sitting. And he's a dear friend of mine, obviously. We just lost him. He meant so much to me in my coaching career. And there was never a time that I couldn't pick up the phone and call him and just say, even when we were playing against each other, which was naive of me to think I ought to be calling him, but we weren't a threat. Calling him, say, Coach, I got this. What do you think? Have you ever had this come up? Have you done this? And he was always wonderful. So this weekend, I will have great memories of Coach Bowden as we prepare for Florida State and all the fun times that he and I had together. When you start looking at them, their defensive lines, the strength of their team on defense, they lead the league in sacks, which is not good for us. They lead the league in tackles for loss, which is not good for us, because we haven't done well in trying to defend either one of those. And offensively, they, like I said, they rushed for 241 yards last year and did a tremendous job against us. Questions?
All right, thanks, Coach. We will begin with Aaron Beard. Go ahead, Aaron.
Hey, Mack, you just mentioned the home record. I'm curious kind of how you look at the disparity between the way you guys have played on the road and the way you guys have played at home, where at home you've looked pretty dominant in your games, but it hasn't been the case on the road. How are you looking at the way those two things are going?
Aaron, usually you've got to win at home before you can win on the road. You got the comforts of home. You got crowds. You got momentum changes are easier. You got people that don't get on a plane and travel or get on a bus and travel. You're staying in the same place you always stay. So if you look at it, everybody's home record is better than their away record. And to be a good team, you got to win at home. To be a great team, you got to win on the road. And last year, just without going through them all, we first year we lost to Wake Forest on the last part of the game. We have a 6 overtime loss to Virginia Tech. We have an overtime loss to Pittsburgh. So you've got to play better on the road because you usually don't get the breaks with the officials. I'm not sure why. It seems like they get into the crowd and you don't get breaks as easily, and you've just got to whip somebody. You got to be better than them on the road and significantly better to win. But if you check, everybody's the same way. I remember when I first was here, we weren't winning any. So I said, we got to win at home. Then when we started winning at home, they said, well, you don't win on the road. I said, yeah, we got to win on the road. And then when you'd lose to Florida State, who was the best team in the country, they said, you can't win a big one. I said, yeah, if we beat that one, we're going to win the national championship. So that's kind of the process that you go through in building. And guys understand that. And I think our guys are understanding it. We've got some that haven't played but 5 games of college football that are playing a significant amount. So that's part of that process they have to learn.
Thanks, Mac.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right, over to Luciano.
Hey, Coach, I hope you're having a good day. This was the first game where you have won the turnover battle in the season and the first one with no turnovers. Florida State, on the other hand, has one of the worst turnover margins in the nation. How big of an opportunity do you think this game is to keep that trend up? And how big of a key do you consider it to be for the game?
There are 2 or 3 different factors that determine whether you win or lose. And the turnover battle is probably the most. And you add 4th down stops in that. But you cannot turn the ball over and win games. And that's why I was so proud of the offense made big plays. We don't need to be a big play, bad play team. We got to be more consistent in that and make some of the bad plays at least average plays so we can get better and hopefully then start running the ball better as well. But we lost our patience and we got frustrated on offense down at Georgia Tech and started turning it over. And that's what got us beat. Defense still played well enough most of that game to win. So the turnover battle is huge for this weekend.
Andrew Jones, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned it after the game Saturday about players maybe feeling like they let some of the fans down based on what expectations were. Could you kind of tell us how you address the team with that? Because they're going to see everything that's written and said out there. You can't hide social media and everything from them. And yet, and you just kind of alluded to it a second ago, you score 31 points, 470 yards against your rival, and people are kind of negative. How do you balance that in your message to the club?
Andrew, it's a very good question. I try to be as honest with them as I can again and say that number one, people are struggling out there. We've still got COVID issues. We got unemployment issues. We got people that don't have jobs and losing their houses. So we have a pretty negative society right now. And when people are needing a release, social media is a great place to release it, especially when you don't have to use your name. So, and then you've got fans from other sites that jump on because they've been waiting, man, for that chance. And I learned very early at Texas when people would tell me there's new names on there this week, Coach. Yeah, they're not your fans, but that's okay. They're trying to look like it to hurt recruiting. So I've tried to educate our guys on what that's really like. And the problem is young people in many cases are addicted to their phones and they're addicted to social media and their computers. And we're spending way too much time looking at screens instead of doing some things that would be more productive in their lives. So I've tried to explain all that to them, Andrew, and also told them that we're going to win. We're going to be great at some point, and those that are jumping off are going to want to jump back on. And I just hope there's no tickets available. That's
Unrelated other question. Florida State hasn't been Chapel Hill since 2009. In fact, I think FSU has only been to Chapel Hill 3 times this century. But in the last 3 times Carolina's played, the Seminoles has been in Tallahassee. They don't play very often. What do you think about the fact that they haven't been here in 12 years and the quirkiness of the schedule? And do you have ideas that you would advance if Commissioner Phillips would listen to you about maybe what should be done with the schedule so kids that played a certain school could face everybody at least maybe once during their college careers?
Yeah, Andrew, it's really interesting when you look at it that the Big 12, when A&M and Missouri left, they started playing each other. And then the conference championship game was a repeat game. And it could have even been that Oklahoma and Oklahoma State were the last game of the year, and they had a game a week later and repeat just because they were both the two top rated teams in the Big 12. So it's really a dilemma in trying to figure out rivalries, for one thing. How do you divide a conference, the Atlantic and the Coastal, and how do you have crossover games? Like I think again this year we're playing Wake Forest as an out-of-conference game. We're playing Notre Dame as an out-of-conference game. So it's a little bit crazy when you look at it, but I think what we may see is if there aren't changes in Coastal and Atlantic, you may see people start playing more conference games as crossovers, even though they're out of conference games. And I think we may see that for TV purposes moving forward, because the more money that TV is going to put into it, the more they're going to demand better games and a tougher schedule. And it's going to be harder for coaches, but coaches can't gripe about not having enough money in their programs through the TV packages and then not play great games. I mean, that's where coaches are in a dilemma right now. So do you play a very difficult schedule that's very attractive for TV, but harder for you to win as a coach? And that's just the balance that people are having to look at. And I think that's what's coming.
I don't want to take up a bunch of time, other people's time, but very quickly, do you support playing a conference foe in a non-conference game?
Yes. I think playing Wake Forest, even though they're really good, and it would be easier for us to play an FCS school that we could beat very easily. I think it's great that we're playing Wake Forest this year, and our fans like it. It's for me, it's a traditional quote ACC game before we had divisions. So I have to stop and think, when I first got back, I had to stop and think, is State in the Coastal or Atlantic, because we're playing them every year. And then I have to say, is Wake Forest the crossover game, or is it an out-of-conference game that we're playing in conference? Because it's just confusing. But I like playing the games that fans get excited about and players get excited about. And when you start looking at State and you start looking at Wake Forest for us as the crossover games, I think those are one out of conference and one a crossover. I think those are excellent games for our teams.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew.
And 3 questions there.
Thank you, Andrew. And you really didn't care about taking other people's time. I could tell.
Actually, I do, because there's like an unwritten rule here, but
yeah, well, they're going to talk. They're talking about you. I can see their faces.
I know. Yeah, so I'm sure Ross is. I'll just ask one question Wednesday to make up.
I'll just say Ross is doing this. I don't know what that means. But.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. CL Brown, go ahead.
Hey, Mac, you don't have to be that old to follow ACC football and know or look at Florida State as kind of the bellwether program in the league. I wanted to get your take just on, the struggles that they've been going through here recently. What does that mean for the league as a whole? Like, how much better is it for the league when Florida State is competing for, at the top of the league?
I think the more great teams we can have, the better it is for our league. Again, it's that tough thing for us, CL, for coaches. You want to win, but you want to have great teams to compete against. And Florida State went through 3 coaches in very few years, and that makes it difficult for recruiting. It makes it difficult for other things. Mike started getting his team better right before we went down there last year, and they whipped us. And he's doing the same now. If you look at it, he has he had the tough opener like we did. He had Notre Dame, and he loses on the last second field goal. And then he has the tough game against Jacksonville State where he loses on the last play of the game. And then he goes to Wake Forest and has trouble on the road with a young team. Then he comes back and has a comeback that falls just short against Louisville. who's playing really well. And then last week beat Syracuse. So they're getting better, and they're really young, and Mike's a tremendous coach. So we got our hands full. What a fun 3 weeks in Chapel Hill to have rival Duke, and then traditional power Florida State and traditional power Miami. I mean, that's pretty cool. That doesn't happen that often. And then you get a week off and you go to South Bend. So we've got a stretch here that's so much fun for our fans and our players for college football that I can't wait for the game.
And I wanted to ask you about the targeting. Has it been enough time to where you feel like players now, you know, it's more natural when they tackle not to go in head first, or do you still feel like it's more natural to go in, like it's almost instinctive to sometimes use your head like that, and it's still something that we're going to see players wrestle with?
CL, it's a great question, and I do think that the targeting rule should have been put in if it saved one person's health, because at least it made us all more aware that we've got to be careful with head injuries in college football. And now I think we're at a point where I can't tell whether it's targeting or not. I look at it and say, that has to be targeting, man. He's got to be kicked out of the game. And they say, nope, he's fine. It's not even a penalty. So I would like to see us go back and revisit now and not de-emphasize the rule, but we need to go back and revisit, in my opinion, what is a shot where a young person looks like he is actively trying to hurt an unprotected player, as compared to a guy who tackles a guy and we think he tackled him too aggressively. Don't kick him out of the game. Give him 15-yard penalty if it's unsportsmanlike or personal foul, but don't kick him out because he was having a football play that we thought might be a little more aggressive, because it's so gray it's hard to tell. If it's point of the helmet, yes, but now we're even seeing point of the helmet where they're saying, I don't know, where he hit him. And so I think it's like holding and it's like pass interference. It depends on who's calling it, and they're all different. And I do like the fact that this one is called from upstairs. I would still like upstairs to be able to see any awful call during a game that changes the game and change it. So I'm sticking by that strong. I don't want to take more time in games. I don't want to waste our time. But if there is an absolute holding penalty that changes a game and a guy upstairs sees it, hey, buzz down and say, left tackle was holding 15 yards, number 72, turn it down if you want to, but that's what you got. And I'd like to see the same thing with targeting, CL. I think we're at a point, I hate to see a young guy make an effort play that's so gray we're not sure whether it's a penalty or not, but we kick him out of a game. I hate that. That's not fair to the kids. We at least put them back on the field. I hated it when we treated them like they were had done something awful and sent them in, made them sit by themselves. That was awful. And I hate it where they had to sit in the locker room by themselves for the first half of the next game. So we're making progress. I think it's time to have a 15-yard penalty and an ejection penalty if it's an awful hit that could possibly hurt a young person.
Okay, let's go to Matt Michelle, please.
Hey, Matt, good to see you.
Good to see you, Matt.
I wanted to kind of piggyback on the Florida State question a little bit about being so good. You were a GA on that 74 team that had a really rough start, similar to what Florida State's gone through this year. What do you remember about that year? And, what do you do as a coach maybe to kind of handle those kind of starts so you keep the team together, even though things are kind of not going the way you want to on the field?
Matt, I've been around too many of those, so I've got that part down really good. I remember that we weren't very good. And I remember that Burt Reynolds was just coming out with the longest yard. And he came and they showed us the premiere to our team Friday night before we played Baylor. And if I remember it right, we were all screaming, green machine, green machine, green machine. And Baylor was green. And I think we were up 17-0 and got beat. Because we were really, really struggling. But then Coach Bowden came in the next year. And Florida State got back on track just quickly. And I think what Mike's done is Jimbo leaving was tough on some folks, and then Willie coming in, and that didn't work as well as everybody thought. And now Mike's there, and they brought in 13 transfers this spring. We've got to do a better job of looking at the transfer portal because everybody we're playing is bringing in good players, and we only brought in one. So it's something we need to look at and do a better job with. But they look good. They're well coached. It's just a matter of time. And like I said, we got whipped by them last year. So they'll come in here with a great attitude this weekend. But they are not far away. I think people there is an anger in our society right now, and people want to get angry over everything. If Florida State fans look, this team is really close, and they could just as well be 3-2, and maybe even 4-1. So Wake Forest is the only game they've really been out of, and so I think they're coming fast.
Thanks, Mac. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Greg Barnes.
Good morning, Mac. By
Morning,
my
Greg.
count, this program has had 3 career-ending injuries at center over the past 5 years. Obviously, that issue with depth. How do you go about trying to correct the depth issue right now, and how do you try to address it both short-term and long-term?
Well, it's a real issue, Greg, and you're so right. It's probably the biggest issue we have that we haven't been able to address and get fixed. So that's why we moved Caden Baker over there last week, and it was very unfair to him to expect him to play well in a game when he hadn't ever played center in a game and didn't even practice till Wednesday. So hopefully his snaps were good. He did a lot of good things. Hopefully Caden will be an addition to that group. He can still play left tackle and he can play center. But we also may need to look around and that we may need to look in the transfer portal for a center just because it's been so difficult for us. And we have not had good luck at that position at this point.
And you've talked about having open conversations with players because of the eligibility rule instituted last year. Are you having those conversations with Brian Anderson and Kieran Johnson to try to set up things for next year?
Yes. And we've had it with everybody. And what we'll do, Greg, is we'll go revisit it with each player in the open date. Because you work so hard during the week to try to get things going. The open dates just past midseason. It's a great time to say, all right, we had this visit after spring practice. Let's revisit. How are you feeling now? Are you coming back? Are you definitely leaving? Are you going to wait and see how the draft goes? Are you a second teamer that's going to go in the portal because you're not starting enough? And we're okay with all that. Just tell us what you want. And we'll try to help you do that. But those conversations will be revisited during the open date.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ross Martin, go ahead.
Hey, Coach Brown, wanted to stay on the offensive line. Obviously, you played 3 different centers on Saturday. The run game maybe a little bit more improved, but still gave up 5 sacks. When you're looking at tape, what's the core issue that you're seeing in the offensive line? Because you're also playing more players there as well. I mean, what do you see basically that's happening, whether good or bad with that group right now?
Okay. First, Ross, Andrew texted me and said, you only get 1 question.
Okay.
So that's important. He felt like that you might want to go more. So he said, no, cut him off. And Jeremy got the same text. So I'm glad he's muted, Andrew. So I think we're good. Now, the thing that we've tried to do is look at every possible scenario to see what's wrong. And the offensive line is going to be the most criticized group of people if you lose a ball game, and you usually lose it because you can't run. And then everybody is on the offensive line coach. That's 100%. Regardless of whether the back was at fault, the tight end was at fault, the quarterback held the ball, the offensive line, I wouldn't play it and I wouldn't coach it because those boys get abused. I mean, they have a bad job. Now, Greg just addressed center. We've said we're not talking about injuries. We're not using it as an excuse, but we have 2 centers and both of them have been hurt the whole season. And that's been really difficult. And to their credit, both of them have played hurt. And when Q came in the other day, he's the most well of those 2. and he really played well, and we'll keep getting Caden to come. So that's been a huge part of this, because they make all the calls, they do everything. And then everybody's been banged up at one time or another. And I do think, Ross, in studying this one so hard, sometime our backs are trying too hard, so they've got to slow down a little bit and be more patient. There were more holes there on Saturday in that first half than we found. So slow down. Slow down. We're trying to be Javonte and Michael Carter. And there's a frustration because it's been so easy for 2 years. And it hasn't been easy at all this year except Virginia. Virginia's what we want. We're looking for that offense. But at least Saturday, other than me, I got frustrated and I get mad. I'm like a fan. But the players didn't. The coaches didn't. They hung in there, and they did the things they needed to do to score their 31 points. And then we've got to go back and try to make sure that we protect Sam better. We just got to do that. And there were some of it's interesting when you look at 5 sacks, one might be a quarterback draw that he got a 1-yard loss and people call it a sack. One might be where he scrambles because the guy was covered outside. Duke did a good job of covering us some, and we've got to get open. And we were holding the ball because they were covered. So we got to throw it away or take a sack. And then there's some where we just get whipped. And we've got to do a better job. If their guy is better than our guy, we've got to give him some help. We've got to give him some help by call, by scheme, or by chipping a tight end or chipping a running back. And I think all those things are things that we need to do better, because Florida State's got great pass rushers. So, and you can't always drop back on 3rd and long and expect to protect if you're struggling. You know, we got to run more screens and draws and do some things to help those guys up front. And all those things are things that we continue to look at, because we are a totally different offense than we've been for the previous 2 years. And we've just got to figure out who the best players are and how we get the balls to them. And with inconsistent play, that's hard to do. So people just need to be consistent, and we still got a chance in every game that we've got left. But that's the one area we got to play consistently like we did on defense Saturday. We've got to continue to improve in the kicking game, because it's getting better than we've ever had it. And at the same time, we got to get more consistent on offense.
All right, Coach, that's all we got for you today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. I'll see you guys on Wednesday.